The broadcast had barely begun. The lights were blinding, cameras rolled, millions tuned in. It wasn't just a debate, it was a reckoning. Noam Chomsky sat to the left, a legend in academia, now frail, but his voice still sharp as steel. To the right, Vice President JD Vance, son of a forgotten town, now seated beside one of America's most towering intellectuals. The moment arrived without warning. Chomsky leaned forward, eyes piercing through the camera, and said with bone-chilling clarity, "Donald Trump is the most dangerous political figure in modern American history." The room froze. Even the moderator, a seasoned CNN anchor, looked shaken. The control room whispered into her earpiece, but she didn't speak. She just turned toward JD Vance, as did the entire nation. People expected fireworks, or maybe silence, but not this. Vance didn't blink. He leaned in, calm, measured. "Professor Chomsky, your lectures inspired millions, but somewhere along the way, you stopped listening to them yourself." His voice was soft, respectful, but it cut deeper than a scream. No one breathed. In small towns across Ohio and Pennsylvania, people turned up the volume. They hadn't felt seen in years, until now. JD Vance didn't raise his voice. He didn't flinch. The studio was still. Chomsky stared, not angry, confused. The audience leaned forward, unsure what was happening. Vance's tone shifted, slower, warmer, like a man who'd buried friends. The people who voted for Trump, they weren't brainwashed, they were ignored. Someone in the audience gasped. "You call them dangerous, I call them desperate. They lost factories, fathers, futures. They watched politicians quote statistics while their kids overdosed in the hallway." He looked toward the cameras now, directly into the hearts of viewers. They didn't storm the Capitol. They stormed unemployment lines, soup kitchens, county jails. They waited for answers, and all they got was silence. A mother watching from West Virginia wiped her eyes. She'd lost her son to fentanyl last year. No one in Washington had mentioned his name, but somehow, Vance just did. "If Trump is the most dangerous man in America," Vance continued, "then maybe the silence that created him is even worse." The moderator whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. Even Chomsky, a man who'd debated presidents, said nothing. In that quiet, America heard something it hadn't in years. Truth that bled. The next morning, the internet exploded. The clip, just 58 seconds, spread like wildfire. It was shared by veterans, nurses, farmers, former steelworkers, grieving mothers. They didn't all love Trump, but they knew pain, and Vance had named it. Cable news was aflame. Pundits bickered. "He's deflecting," some cried. But the people who mattered, the ones who don't get invited to panels, they watched the moment again and again. And something began to shift. That afternoon, JD Vance was photographed standing in a parking lot outside a shuttered coal plant in eastern Kentucky. No suit, no cameras, just him and an old miner named Donnie. Donnie's voice cracked as he spoke. "My daddy died in that mine. My brother died from the bottle. I voted for Trump because I had nothing left. But what you said last night, that hit me, man." Vance didn't talk. He listened. Then Donnie pulled out something from his pocket. A crumpled black and white photo of a family that once believed in America. "Don't let them forget us again," he said. JD held the photo like it was sacred. And maybe, for the first time, so did the country. 3 days after the debate, JD Vance flew to Dayton, Ohio. No press, no official schedule, just one black SUV and a stop at a tiny church with peeling paint. Inside, 30 folding chairs faced a closed casket. No flowers, no cameras, no headlines. The woman inside, Maria Hutchins, had buried her son last winter. Opioid overdose. He was 17. Now she was gone too. Heart failure, they said. But those close to her knew the truth. It wasn't her heart, it was the silence. Vance sat alone in the back row, head bowed. The pastor whispered, "You didn't have to come." Vance replied, "That's the point. No one ever does." After the service, he approached the only living family member, Maria's elderly father. The man shook as he held Vance's hand. She watched you the other night," he whispered. "She said it was the first time someone in DC sounded like they knew her." JD didn't respond. He just knelt beside the casket, pulled a white lily from his coat pocket, and laid it gently atop the coffin. No speeches, no slogans, just a promise. She would not be forgotten, and neither would the silence that killed her. A week later, JD Vance visited a community college in Akron. The auditorium buzzed with quiet laughter and nervous chatter. Most students didn't follow politics, but their professors begged them to come. They said this wasn't about elections. It was about truth. Vance walked on stage wearing no tie, no script. He didn't open with policy. He opened with a story. "I grew up in Middletown. My mom struggled with addiction. We moved a lot. I was angry for a long time." The room hushed. He told them about sleeping on a mattress soaked in beer, about holding his breath when police knocked, about nights when food came from school lunch leftovers. Then he paused, scanning the crowd. In the front row sat a boy, maybe 19, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. JD looked at him. "You feel invisible," JD said softly, "but you're not." The boy blinked fast, trying not to cry. When people talk about saving democracy, they always forget about saving you. That's where democracy dies first, in the silence around your name. The kid clapped once, then stopped, embarrassed, but the room erupted, not in applause, in tears, and finally in understanding. That night, Vance's phone rang, unknown number. He hesitated, then picked up. A man's voice came through, shaking, whispering, "You don't know me. My name's Tony. I'm not calling for politics. I just need to tell someone." JD didn't hang up. "I saw you with Chomsky, and then I saw the clip from the college. That boy in the hoodie, that's my son, Jason." JD closed his eyes. He remembered the kid clearly. "I haven't spoken to him in a year, not since his sister died. He blamed me, said I cared more about my job than her grief." Tony's voice cracked. "He won't answer my calls, but after watching you, he texted me. Just 3 words. You should watch this." Silence. Then Tony sobbed. "You made him feel like he mattered. You reminded me of what I forgot." JD leaned against the hotel window, staring into the night. "You didn't fail him," he said gently, "but you can still find him." Tony whispered, "Thank you." And somewhere in a dark, quiet bedroom across the state, a young man finally slept without pain for the first time in months. By the next morning, JD Vance's office was flooded. Not with lobbyists or journalists, but with letters, thousands of them. Handwritten, crumpled, coffee-stained. The kind of letters the world stopped writing. Until now. A retired nurse from Flint, Michigan wrote, "You spoke for my husband. He worked 40 years at GM. Now we can't afford his insulin." A 14-year-old from rural Arkansas wrote, "I don't know what a vice president does, but I think you understand why my dad drinks at dinner." JD sat on the floor, surrounded by stacks. His staff offered to sort them. He said no. He read every single one. Some made him smile, most made him cry, but one, from a woman named Cheryl in Charleston, broke him wide open. "My daughter overdosed on her 18th birthday. She left a note. It said, 'I just wanted someone to see me.'" JD put the letter down, closed his eyes, and whispered to no one, "I see you now." Outside the Capitol, the noise of politics raged on. Inside his office, Vance made a quiet vow: to speak for the people who died waiting for someone else to. 3 weeks later, JD visited a charter school in Cleveland. Nothing fancy. Peeling lockers, broken tiles. But hope buzzed in the air, held together by exhausted teachers and kids who'd already seen too much. During lunch, he sat beside a small boy named Marcus. Marcus didn't speak much. He unwrapped his lunch slowly, a balled-up paper bag holding 1 slice of bread, 2 pickles, and a ketchup packet. JD looked at it and paused. "That your lunch, buddy?" Marcus nodded. "Mama says we'll have more soon." JD swallowed hard. "You ever go to bed hungry?" Marcus shrugged. "Not if I drink water first." The words slammed into JD like bricks. This wasn't statistics. This was now. He gave the boy his apple, then his sandwich. The boy whispered thanks, but never made eye contact. Later, JD asked the principal if this was common. She nodded. Most of these kids survive. Few of them live. That night, JD Vance didn't post on social media. He didn't draft legislation. He sat on his hotel bed holding Marcus's empty paper bag and cried. Not for the boy with no lunch, but for the nation that forgot he existed. A month had passed since the viral debate with Chomsky, but something strange was happening. Clips of JD's response, especially his line, "If Trump is the most dangerous man in America, maybe the silence that created him is even worse," were being shared not just on cable news, but in churches, barbershops, AA meetings, truck stops. Places where politics usually sparked arguments, now sparked tears. Then, one night, a low-rated cable network quietly re-aired the full debate, raw and uncut. The next morning, it exploded online. People weren't just watching the moment, they were listening to what came after. The way JD looked at Chomsky, the pain in his voice, the care in every sentence. A single mother in Nevada posted, "I didn't hear a politician. I heard a man who's been broken." A Marine vet in Tulsa added, "He didn't make excuses, he made sense." By week's end, a movement was rising, not behind Trump or Chomsky, but behind something else: honesty, pain, humanity. And at the center of it was JD Vance, not shouting, not pandering, just seeing people. And that was something America hadn't felt in decades. It was a cold morning in Pittsburgh. JD Vance arrived early to speak at a small-town VFW hall. No fanfare, no cameras, just rows of folding chairs and old veterans sipping lukewarm coffee. He didn't give a speech that day. He listened. One man rolled forward in a rusted wheelchair, missing part of one leg. Vietnam vet. Name tag read, Hank. His voice was quiet. "I've watched politicians my whole life. They all promised change. But the plant closed. My pension vanished. My son died in Iraq. My wife, in a hospital we couldn't afford." Vance knelt beside him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Hank held up a trembling hand. "Don't be. Just don't forget." JD didn't respond. Instead, he pulled a small photo from his pocket. It was his late pawpaw, his grandfather, a Marine who raised him. "He would have liked you, Hank." They clasped hands, hard, silent. That night, JD posted no videos, no quotes. He just uploaded one picture of Hank's old wheelchair next to an empty chair, with 5 words: "They carried us. We forgot." The post went viral, but Hank never saw it. He died 3 days later, finally heard. It had been 6 weeks since the televised debate. Then one morning, JD's assistant walked in with a stunned look. "Sir, it's Professor Chomsky. He wants to speak with you." JD hesitated, but answered. Chomsky's voice, though older now, still carried weight. "Mr. Vance," he said slowly, "I've spent a lifetime warning about tyranny, but I failed to warn about something else. Emptiness. The kind that swallows people whole when they're unseen." JD said nothing, just listened. Chomsky continued. "You didn't defend Trump, you defended the broken. I didn't understand that at first, but now I see it, and I was wrong to speak without hearing." For a moment, there was just silence. Then JD replied softly, "You didn't fail, Professor. You gave us the tools. But a lot of us had to learn how to use them barefoot, in the dark." Chomsky's voice cracked. "Maybe it's not too late." JD paused. "It never is, as long as someone's still listening." The call ended. But for the first time in years, America saw something almost unheard of. 2 men, from opposite worlds, meeting in the middle, not to win, but to understand. The next stop was Indianapolis. JD slipped into a roadside diner for coffee before a town hall. No security, no tie, just jeans and tired eyes. A waitress named Loretta served him. Late 40s, tight ponytail, fake smile. JD noticed her hands shaking slightly as she poured. "You okay?" he asked. She flinched, then shrugged. "I'm just tired. My son went missing last year. No one looked. Said he was just another runaway." JD set down his mug. "What's his name?" She blinked. "Malik. He liked baseball. Used to wear this ratty Cubs hat everywhere. JD pulled out his notebook and wrote the name down. I can't promise anything, but I'll ask questions no one else did. She stared, then whispered, Why would you care? He looked her in the eyes. Because you care, and that's enough. Before leaving, JD placed a folded note by the cash register. Inside was his number, and a short line. He matters, and so do you. The town hall that night was electric. But back at the diner, Loretta held that note like it was gold, finally believing that someone, somewhere, might still be looking for her son. Mid-April, JD Vance visited East Palestine, Ohio. It had been over a year since the train derailment that spilled chemicals into the air and water. National attention had faded, the headlines were gone, but the coughs remained. A little girl named Ava met him outside a rundown clinic. She was wearing a pink surgical mask even though it was 70 degrees. Her mother held a bottle of cloudy water and said nothing. JD knelt. How long have you been sick, sweetheart? Ava didn't speak. She just pointed at her chest, then shook her head. The mother finally said, They told us the air was fine. Then my neighbor collapsed in her yard. JD didn't take notes. He didn't pose for photos. He just stood there, quiet, staring at the river where fish no longer swam. That night, he spoke at the local high school gym. No teleprompter, no promises. We failed you. Not just one party, all of us. But tonight, I'm not here to win votes. I'm here to stay until someone listens. He did. And for the first time since the disaster, the gym filled with something more powerful than anger. Tears. And hope. It was July 2nd, and JD had stopped at a gas station outside Peoria, Illinois. Inside, by the dusty coffee machine, stood a tree, not a green one, a crooked metal frame with torn ornaments. A cardboard sign said, Merry Christmas, Mikey, we miss you. JD asked the cashier about it. The man's eyes watered. It's for a boy who died 2 years ago. Car accident. His mama works nights at the diner down the road. She couldn't afford a headstone, so she made this tree instead. JD walked out without a word. That night he found the diner, sat in the corner booth, ordered a sandwich he didn't eat. When the woman came to refill his water, he asked softly, Was Mikey your son? She nodded. He loved Christmas. We never got to celebrate that last year. JD looked up. Would it be okay if I helped you give him one now? She stared, confused. The next morning, JD returned with a truck full of lights, a new tree, and toys for the local shelter in Mikey's name. As they lit it together, she whispered, You didn't have to. He replied, That's exactly why I did. It wasn't supposed to be emotional. The press had followed JD to a veterans rehabilitation center in Charleston, West Virginia. It was meant to be a routine photo op, smiles, handshakes, move on. Then came Alan, a 60-year-old former Marine with missing teeth and a trembling voice. He stood up, uninvited, and said, I served in '91, came home to nothing, lost my wife to cancer, my son to heroin, and my house to medical debt. The room went quiet. Alan kept going. I sleep in my car now, but last night I heard your debate, and I thought, maybe someone up there finally knows what this feels like. JD froze. You could see it on camera, the moment it hit him. He walked forward, gripped Alan's shoulders, and whispered something no mic caught. Then he hugged him. A long, breaking, silent hug. A reporter snapped the photo. It went viral within minutes. But not for the image, for JD's tears. Real, raw, unscripted. People didn't say, what a politician. They said, that's a man who remembers what pain feels like. And in that raw moment, America cried with him. November 7th, 2028, election night. Inside a private room in Columbus, JD Vance waited, not for numbers, but for a call. It never came. Outside, crowds gathered. His name echoed across rooftops, truck stops, nursing homes, union halls. But he wasn't watching the map. He was staring at an empty chair. It belonged to his papa, the man who raised him, the man who fought in Okinawa, survived addiction in the family, and taught JD how to stand for people when it's easier to walk away. Years ago, when JD was just a scared kid in Middletown, Papa promised, "One day, you'll speak for the ones nobody listens to." Tonight, JD sat with his hand on that chair. Across the country, exit polls showed a shift. Not left, not right, human. A waitress in Oklahoma wrote on Facebook, "I didn't vote for a politician. I voted for someone who saw my son's shoes were duct taped and didn't laugh." A trucker in Michigan posted, "I voted for the man who didn't promise hope. He gave it to me in a handshake." And JD, he just whispered, "I'm still listening, Papa. I'm still listening." 2 days after the election, JD returned to where it all began. The studio where Chomsky had called Trump the most dangerous man in American history. It was empty now, quiet. Just him and the echo of a debate that changed everything. JD stepped onto the stage, alone, not to gloat, not to speak. He took out a folded letter. It was from Cheryl, the mother whose daughter overdosed and left behind a suicide note that said, "I just wanted someone to see me." He read the last line out loud. "If you read this, please tell her story. Don't let her be a number." JD looked at the camera, but not like a politician, like a father, a neighbor, a man who'd buried dreams with his own hands. To every person out there feeling invisible, we see you, we need you, and I promise, your silence will never be ignored again. No applause, no cheers, just one spotlight, dimming over a man who didn't just win an election. He broke America open and helped it feel again. It was a snowy December morning in Cincinnati. JD Vance visited a small elementary school with no media present. Just a promise. He sat beside a boy named Tommy, shoes taped, sweater 3 winters too small. Tommy was quiet, fidgety. JD smiled. "What do you want for Christmas?" Tommy shrugged. "Maybe gloves. Maybe for my mom to stop crying." JD blinked, then took off his coat and wrapped it around the boy. "You ever heard of Pawpaw?" Tommy shook his head. He believed even kids like me could matter. He was right. Before JD left, Tommy reached into his pocket and handed him a torn scrap of paper, written in pencil. "Thank you for seeing me." JD turned away so the child wouldn't see his tears. And that night, at the White House tree lighting, JD didn't give a speech. He held up Tommy's note and simply said, "This is what we're fighting for. Not polls, not power, people, all of them." If this story touched your heart, leave a comment about who in your life needed to be seen. Like this video if you felt something real. Share it. Someone you know needs this story tonight. And please subscribe for more stories that actually matter. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement of feeling again.